So it's that time of year again. Let's talk boxing awards. But before we get into the video, like and subscribe. It would be really appreciated. So before we get to anything, let me tell you the categories that we'll be discussing. Fighter of the Year, Fight of the Year, Performance of the Year, Prospect of the Year, KO of the Year, Upset of the Year, Comeback Fighter of the Year, and Round of the Year. I will be doing a winner and a runner-up for each category. So first of all, of course, will be Fighter of the Year. Now the candidates are, four candidates in my opinion: Saul Canelo Alvarez, Stephen Fulton, Josh Taylor, and Alexander Usyk. Now, I'm going to have to take out Josh Taylor and Alexander Usyk, even though they had two great wins. Great wins. But it's because they only had one win this year. I think Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez and Alexander Usyk's victory over Anthony Joshua is better than anything Canelo Alvarez did or Stephen Fulton did single-handedly. But I think these guys are the top two guys, Fighter of the Year and runner-up of the year. But I'm going to give Fighter of the Year to Canelo Alvarez and runner-up to Stephen Fulton. Canelo Alvarez unified with two fighters within 12 months. He fought his mandatory opponent, knocked out every opponent he's faced this year. Callum Smith, he faced him in 2020, so we will not count that. But this year in February 27, he knocked out Vinny Yildirim, his mandatory opponent. Even though Vinny Yildirim is not that great of a fighter, but he stopped him in 3 rounds. Following round 3, Vinny Yildirim quit on a stool. He dominated Yildirim. Yildirim did not win a round. Dropped him in round 3, and then Yildirim quit on a stool. Then on May 8, 2021, I thought Canelo could get outboxed in that fight. He stopped Billy Joe Sanders in 8 rounds. Canelo got off to a good start, won the first 2 rounds, but then I thought Billy Joe Sanders began to outbox Canelo up until round 8, where Billy Joe Sanders made the same mistake he made like 10 times, kneeling to the side in the same exact position. And Canelo Alvarez timed him, landed a huge right uppercut, which allegedly broke his orbital bone. Billy Joe Sanders quit on his stool as well. Then in a fight against Caleb Plant, an interesting fight, who Caleb Plant, also undefeated, just like Billy Joe Sanders, had a good start to the fight as well. I know Canelo, especially after round 8, was coming off very strong in rounds 9 and 10. He dropped and stopped Caleb Plant. Unlike Vinny Yildirim and Billy Joe Sanders, Caleb Plant had no intentions of quitting in that fight. When the referee asked him, "Do you want to continue?" he gave a hard, "Yeah, of course I want to continue." I was impressed with his heart. Caleb Plant showed heart, but Canelo was just too good. So in my eyes, he gets Fighter of the Year, even though Stephen Fulton did give us a couple of fantastic performances this year. Stephen Fulton, the guy I am very, very high on. He would have won Fighter of the Year if Canelo Alvarez did not run through two undefeated champions. If he did not run through 2 undefeated champions, I would have given it to Stephen Fulton, no doubt, for beating WBO champion Angelo Leo, and then he beat Brandon Figueroa. He also beat 2 undefeated champions, but did not capture Undisputed. If he did capture Undisputed, he would have obviously got it. If he would have beaten MJ, that's a much harder division in my opinion. Not trying to take anything away from Canelo Alvarez, but I don't think super lightweight is the hardest division there is right now in boxing. Not super lightweight, super middleweight. I don't believe so. And I expect big things from Canelo Alvarez next year as well. So do I from Stephen Fulton. Stephen Fulton does have to face his mandatory opponent first. He has a mandatory challenger that he has to face. But after that, I hope he faces MJ. And if he does beat MJ, maybe he can get Fight of the Year for next year. As I said, I think the best 2 wins out of those 4 fighters are obviously Usyk over Joshua and Josh Taylor over Jose Ramirez, because they were conclusive and much more difficult opponents. Maybe the best fighter that was being out of all those guys, if you put all of Canelo's opponents, if you put all of Usyk's opponent, Josh Taylor's opponent, and Stephen Fulton's opponents, maybe you can argue that the best guy is Brandon Figueroa, but the Brandon Figueroa fight could have gone either way. That's not trying to take anything away from Stephen Fulton. It could have gone either way. Because I'm very high on Brandon Figueroa as well. I think both Brandon Figueroa and Stephen Fulton beat both MJ and Nowini Inoue, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I absolutely believe these guys are fantastic fighters. And I think Brandon Figueroa will give a lot of featherweights problems. So now let's talk about Performance of the Year. Performance of the Year, I only have 2 contestants for this one. Only 2 fights, 2 fighters who really put on fantastic performances this year. Obviously not only 2, but only 2 put on this level. I guess they're both moving up in weight and absolutely dominating their opponents. The options are Shakur Stevenson's TKO victory over Jamal Herring and Alexander Usyk's wide unanimous decision win over Anthony Joshua. I'm going to have to give it to Usyk over Joshua because it was kind of an upset. Joshua was a 2-1 favorite, where Stevenson was a huge favorite over Herring, even though he was the challenger. I think both fighters showed out. Both fighters absolutely dominated guys who were way, way bigger than them. Shakur Stevenson didn't lose a round. Absolutely dominated and tortured Jamal Herring throughout the fight. Alexander Usyk beat up, hurt several times Anthony Joshua and looked absolutely great. I thought he only lost round 6 and 8, and round 12 was a 10-8 round. So I had that fight 118-109 for Usyk. I hear a lot of people now having I don't know what you can call it. I think their perception has changed towards the fight. They're saying that fight was a close decision victory for Usyk. There was nothing close about that fight. Usyk started very well, picked up the first 4 or 5 rounds, and ended very well, winning the last 4 or 5 rounds. So there was nothing close about that fight. Now we'll talk about Prospect of the Year. Look, if this guy wasn't in the mandatory position to fight Demetrius Andrade, I'd give Prospect of the Year to Janibek ala Muhammad Ali. I think he's a fantastic fighter. He should fight Demetrius Andrade next. I hear a lot of talk coming from Matchroom that Demetrius Andrade might vacate and move to super middleweight. I'd be highly disappointed if that happened, because Demetrius Andrade has been crying his whole life about being avoided. I'm a guy who's defended Demetrius Andrade several times on this channel. He's always said that he's being avoided, and I've always been on his side when he says that. But if he chooses to duck Janibek ala Muhammad Ali, I will never, ever in my life defend Demetrius Andrade and will viciously attack him in my videos. Now, since we cannot put Janibek ala Muhammad Ali in as Prospect of the Year, I have 2 main contestants. One is the real big baby, Jared Anderson. And one, I know he's the WBA regular super middleweight champion, but he's only had 6 fights, and he's not fighting anyone serious yet. David Morell. I think David Morell is a fantastic fighter. If you haven't seen him fight before, go watch him. His last fight was the very first fight I've ever seen for him, and he was absolutely stunning in that fight. I was highly impressed. He had power, skills, defense. Anything you want from him, it was there. And I'm going to have to edge it to David Morell for Prospect there, even though Jared Anderson blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind in his last fight when he knocked out Alexander Teslenko. He was mid-combination switching stances, and I've never ever in my life seen that from a heavyweight. Heavyweights are usually clumsy, heavy big guys who can't do stuff like that. The stuff that guys like Pernell Whitaker do or Terrence Bud Crawford do. But Jared Anderson reminded me a lot of a heavyweight version of Terrence Bud Crawford. And that's a scary guy to fight. I just think David Morell impressed me a bit more. I think David Morell, with time, could give Canelo Alvarez the fight of his life. Really, really good fighter. He impressed me greatly. And as I said, if you haven't seen him fight before, go watch him. That guy is mean. He's a tough fighter. He has power in both hands. And he has a bright, bright future. He has skill. He's Cuban. He's a good Cuban amateur as well. I like him a lot. Now we will discuss KO of the year. We've had lots of fantastic knockouts this year. Kiko Martinez over Kid Galahad was a fantastic knockout. I would have got knockout of the year in several other years. We had Josh Warrington when he knocked out. Josh Warrington when he got knocked out by Mauricio Lara. We had Miguel Berchelt being viciously knocked out by Oscar Valdez. Gabriel Rosado knocking out the bully Bektimir Malakuziev. Tyson Fury clocking Deontay Wilder out completely. Oh, that was a vicious knockout. Lots of vicious knockouts. But I'm going to narrow it down to two. Even Jake Paul's knockout over Tyron Woodley deserves a shout out. But I'm going to narrow it down to Gabe's knockout over Bektimir Malakuziev and Oscar Valdez's knockout. Stunning knockout versus Miguel Berchelt. I predicted Miguel Berchelt to lose that fight, even though Miguel Berchelt was a 6-1 favorite. Did not see a single YouTuber predict Valdez to win that fight. But I predicted Valdez to win that fight. But I thought he would outbox him. Did not, for the life of me, think that he could knock him out clean like that. And not just knock him out, drop him 3 or 4 times. It was brutal. I even put a lot of money. Not a lot of money, but I put $100 at the time that Valdez would win the fight by decision, because I got like 9-1 odds for that one. Sadly, he won by knockout. Did not get any money. I think it was like 16-1 odds for a Valdez stoppage. So had I put that $100 on the stoppage, I would have gotten a $1,700 return. But still, I'm going to have to give it between Rosado over Malakuziev and Valdez over Berchelt to Rosado. Because he was doing it while already been dropped, while already been hurt badly. I thought Bektimir was about to stop Rosado at any minute. And then he walked him into a beautiful, beautiful right hand. Fight's over. Very, very impressive knockout from Rosado. I've never seen Rosado get a knockout like that in his entire career. And I've watched Rosado. Rosado is one of my favorite fighters. My top 3 favorite fighters in boxing is Derek Chisora, Gabriel Rosado, and David Benavidez. I like Rosado and Chisora because they're very throwback fighters. They both have double-digit losses and will always give the top guys a tough fight. You'll never see Rosado or Chisora have bad performances in their life. You just won't see it. And that's why I like both those guys. I support both those guys. Fantastic fighters, in my opinion. I know they're both not going to win championships, even though they've both been robbed blind and against former champions. Chisora, when he fought Joseph Parker, and Rosado, when he fought Danny Jacobs, they were robbed blind. But I don't think they'll ever become champions. Obviously, it could happen. They would both be huge upsets. Huge. Like, let's say Chisora fights a rematch against Usyk, and he catches Usyk in like the first, second round. That would be a huge upset. Rosado outboxes Gennady Golovkin if they have a rematch, or Jermall Charlo. Huge upsets. I think he faced Jermall Charlo. That was also a close fight. Could have went either way. So yeah, I'm going to give knockout of the year for Rosado over Bektimir. Now for fight of the year. I believe fight of the year had 4 legit contestants. All 4 could have made it in different years. Number 1, Tyson Fury's 11th round KO over Deontay Wilder. Number 2, Brian Castellanos' draw with Jermell Charlo. Number 3, the rematch between Chocolatito and Estrada. And number 4, George Kambosos' fantastic upset win over Teofimo Lopez. I think all 4 are viable options. But as we said, I'm going to have to slim it down to 2. It's going to be between Brian Castellano and Jermell Charlo, and Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. So let's talk about the 2 that we crossed out first and why they deserve to be considered Fight of the Year. Number 1, Brian Chocolatito versus Estrada rematch. It was a good back and forth action, but the reason why I'm not putting it with Fight of the Year with the Castellano-Charlo fight and the Fury-Wilder fight is because neither fighter was hurt. I know it was high action. I think it broke all the records for punches landed and thrown. Neither fighter was hurt. And the George Kambosos versus Teofimo Lopez fight, even though there was drama knockdowns, there were some boring rounds in between. We can't deny that. There were some boring rounds. It wasn't like it was pure excitement from round 1 to round 12, where I believe Charlo Castellano, there was excitement from the beginning to the end. So was Wilder versus Fury. Now, which fight did I favor between the heavyweight fight and the undisputed light middleweight fight? I favored the light middleweight action. My fight of the year is Brian Castellanos' draw with Jermell Charlo. In that fight, I did believe Brian Castellanos did win that fight, but it was still a fantastic fight. Pure action. Both fighters were seriously hurt. High skill, high stakes. It was for the undisputed light middleweight championship of the world. And I thought Brian Castellanos edged that fight. And actually, I thought he won it clearly. I thought he won the 8 rounds to 4. But obviously, it was called a draw. Thank God they didn't rob Brian Castellanos fully and give the fight to Jermell Charlo. He wouldn't have deserved the win. Thank God they're doing a rematch in February. And I'm very shook for the fight. And the Tyson Fury vs. Deontay Wilder fight, even though both fighters were down, both fighters were seriously hurt, I didn't give it because even though Fury was down, other than rounds 1 and 4, Fury was in complete control. Deontay Wilder's power, his insane power, made that a Fight of the Year candidate. Just insane power from Deontay Wilder, and I'm very intrigued to see if he continues on to boxing. I know he's hinting at retirement, but I want to see him in with Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, Dillian White, even Derek Chisora. We want to see him in those fights. I do not want to see the end of Deontay Wilder. So, upset of the year. Upset of the year and the year of the upsets. A lot of boxing fans, a lot of boxing writers have called 2021 the year of the upsets. We've seen lots of huge upsets this year. From the beginning of the year till now, from February where we saw Oscar Valdez upset Miguel Berchelt, to seeing in the same day we saw Josh Warrington getting absolutely destroyed by Mauricio Lara, to just the other day we saw Kiko Martinez at he's like 40 years old right now, knocking out Kid Galahad in a fight where I did not see that coming whatsoever. And to Gabe Rosado having an Indian summer and knocking out highly touted prospect Bektir Melkuziev. Don't forget, Bektir Melkuziev was scheduled to fight Sergey Kovalev, but Sergey Kovalev failed a drug test. Don't forget about that. And a lot of people were the casinos had Bektir Melkuziev as a 3-1 favorite. I believe Canelo Alvarez was only a 4-1 favorite over Sergey Kovalev. So they viewed it the same way. They viewed Bektimir and Sergey Kovalev and Canelo Alvarez to have the same exact chance against Sergey Kovalev, which is crazy. And still Gabriel Rosado knocked him out cold. But with saying all that, I'm going to narrow it down to 3 fights George Kambosos' split decision victory over Teofimo Lopez, Mauricio Lara's not TKO victory over Josh Warrington, and Kiko Martinez turning back the clock and knocking out Kid Galahad in 6 rounds. Now, I'm going to give you my pick, then we'll break down the fights. I'm going to choose George Kambosos Jr. over Teofimo Lopez. Why am I going to do that? Because going into the fight, I thought there's no way, absolutely possible, that George Kambosos makes it out of 3 rounds. That's how I viewed it. But watching the fight live, I watched the fight with my brother. And my brother is a huge Teofimo Lopez fan. I told him Teofimo Lopez is going to lose this fight in the very first round. Because he came out swinging extremely wildly. Too wild. I've never seen a high-level fighter do that ever in my life. Ever. Like, outside of the heavyweight division, because people are going to point out Deontay Wilder and George Foreman have done that for a living. But outside of the heavyweight division, I have never seen anyone come out as angry as Teofimo Lopez did. I know Teofimo Lopez, who was just recently married in 2018, had a divorce with his wife. I know he's been having problems outside of the ring. But that does not excuse you going berserk like that. Ever. In a boxing match. Why would he do that in round 1? He just was swinging wildly. I know he clipped he clipped Kambosos a couple times. But was swinging wildly. It was just crazy to watch. And George Kambosos Jr., bam, in the tail end of round 1, drops Teofimo Lopez and goes on to outbox him. That was a huge upset. I just thought Teofimo, if he couldn't outbox George Kambosos, if he couldn't knock George Kambosos out, he's easily going to outbox him. Let's say George Kambosos has the best chin in the world. He was easily going to get outboxed, but that's not what happened. Just a huge upset, in my opinion. And I believe that's upset of the year. But live, one of the most upsets that brought me excitement was Josh Warrington being stopped against Mauricio Lara. Didn't see that one coming, obviously. Josh Warrington, a fighter who's had several good victories in his career. He's beaten him, I believe he beat, what's his name? Carl Frampton. Carl Frampton, one of my favorite fighters. Just let me take a quick look. He beat Lee Selby. He's beating Kiko Martinez, current IBF champion. He beat Carl Frampton. He had a give decision over Kid Galahad. I thought Galahad edged that one. But you see, he's been in there with the top guys. All the top guys. He beat Lee Selby. Lee Selby, the same guy who gave current unified or undisputed lightweight champion absolute hell. So to see him lose, Josh Warrington, was a shocker. But as I said, I'm going with Kambosos Jr. over Lopez Jr. as upset of the year. Don't get me wrong. Even the Kiko Martinez versus Kid Galahad fight, I was absolutely shocked. Because I know, even though Kiko Martinez, just like most boxing fans, I thought he beat, what's that UK prospect named Zelfa Barrett? I thought he beat Zelfa Barrett. I thought he won 7 or 8 rounds. But to think he can beat a guy like Kid Galahad was just like, at least for me, I thought it was impossible. But I also thought that Kambosos would get killed. I thought Kiko could make it the full 12 rounds. I didn't think Kambosos could make it past 4 or 5 rounds. I was not ruling out a first round knockout, but the way Lopez fought was just idiotic. I think if there would be a rematch, I think Lopez would win fairly easily. He just got to be more patient. He obviously showed in round 10 he has the power to hurt Kambosos. But he just fought the wrong fight. It was his fight to lose, and he lost it. I know he had problems outside of the ring, but that does not excuse it. Most guys that lose in big upsets have problems outside the ring, but also a lot of the all-time greats have problems outside the ring, but still win their fights. So yeah, upset of the year for me is George Kambosos Jr. over Teofimo Lopez Jr. Now, comeback fighter of the year. Comeback fighter of the year would be more like if a guy has been on the decline or seemed like his career was over or a prospect that people gave up on and he has a good comeback. And in my opinion, I think there are two candidates for this one. Kiko Martinez and Anthony Yarde. Kiko Martinez was basically labeled as a journeyman who anyone who wants a fight against, they just fight him, pick up the easy dub, and carry on. And Anthony Yarde seemed like he was exposed, that he can't get around the jab. Because Sergey Kovalev stopped him with the jab when he fought him. Even though he had Kovalev hurt and out of there in round 8, he got knocked out by a jab just 2 rounds later. And then in his fight with Lyndon Arthur, a fight I thought Lyndon Arthur won by a couple rounds. I thought Lyndon Arthur won that fight 8 rounds to 4. It was being blown out of proportion. People are acting like Lyndon Arthur won every single round, which is obviously false. But still, a fight where he shouldn't have lost and he lost, and he just lost to a jab, frankly. Lyndon Arthur did not throw a single right hand. Many people have thought that Anthony Yarde was finished. Obviously, he proved everyone wrong. He came back well. Had a knockout victory against, I forgot his name, just some random Joe. I don't think it was any world-class fighter or not even a European level fighter. Let me just take a quick look at his box record. I know I should be more prepared for this, but I'll do this on the fly. He beat Alex Theron, in the first round. Yeah, it was a guy who had 23 wins and 5 losses. No one special, but he knocked out Lyndon Arthur in 4 rounds. And I'm giving Comeback Fighter of the Year award to Anthony Yarde. A lot of people are writing Anthony Yarde off Lyndon Arthur. And even though Kiko Martinez had a big win, I don't see him doing big things in the sport. I don't see him going to reign supreme over the featherweight division and knock out Emmanuel Navarrete and then move up and give Shakur Stevenson a run for his money. I don't see that, obviously. I do think Anthony Yarde is going to upset one of the 3 big boys at light heavyweight. At light heavyweight, I think we got a round robin that's just exactly like the big guys, the big boys at heavy. Wilder, Joshua, and Fury. I think Joe Smith Jr., Artur Beterbiev, and what's his face, and Dmitry Bivol are the clear top 3 guys at light heavyweight. I think they're the big boys. I think they're above everyone else, in my opinion. And I think Anthony Yarde is going to pick one of them off. I'm not saying he's going to reign supreme over the division, as Hammond likes to say. But I think he's going to upset one of those guys. It could be Joe Smith. It could even be Beterbiev. I doubt he can do it to Dmitry Bivol, but I think he's going to upset one of those guys. I really do. Who will it be? I have no idea. But if I had to put my money on it, I think he beats Joe Smith Jr., Callum Johnson winner. Easy, in my opinion. I think he's... No, obviously not easy, but if Callum Johnson would upset Joe Smith Jr., and I don't give Callum Johnson much of a chance. But if Callum Johnson wins, I put Anthony Yarde much more skilled than Callum Johnson. Callum Johnson is one of the most overrated fighters I've ever seen. He's very overrated in the UK. I don't get why. Very overrated. So yeah, my pick for Comeback Fighter of the Year is Anthony Yarde. Anthony Lions in the Camp Yarde. So now, round of the year. The Ring Magazine gave round of the year to Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, round 4. I'm not really sure why. It was a clear Wilder round. Wilder dropped Fury twice. I understand that he was dropped the round before it. But that round specifically, I don't see why it was round of the year. I don't see why. I give round of the year to one of the most dramatic rounds we had in all of boxing. And I know I've talked so much about this fight already. in this video. People are going to say I'm a fanboy of either fighter. And I'm telling you one thing right now, I'm not. I don't like either fighter. George Kambosos Jr. versus Teofimo Lopez. Round 1 was round of the year. Teofimo Lopez came out like a bull. Like an absolute bull. Looking to knock out George Kambosos. Hurt Kambosos, I believe, on a couple shots. And then gets dropped hard and badly at the tail end of round 1. Extremely badly. And I think that was the most dramatic and the most exciting round of the year. I think it's much more... The entire Tyson Fury vs. Deontay Wilder fight, I view as a sloppy fight. I don't view as highly as many people do. There was lots of drama. There was lots of action. Our hearts were pumping, yes. But in terms of skill and entertainment was high, yes, but I did not see much skill involved in that fight. It was a very, very sloppy fight. Both guys were big, slow. Both guys were basically out of breath by round 5. Not that skilled. It's not that, like, extremely skilled fight. It's not like we were seeing Floyd Mayweather going against Pernell Whitaker. We saw very, very sloppy fight, in my opinion. Did not view it in the high regards as many other people did. Very entertaining fight. Obviously, at that time, it was the number 1 versus number 5 heavyweight for me. It's always nice when we get 2 top 5 heavyweights fighting, or 2 top 5 guys in any weight class fighting. But it wasn't like how many people are making out to be. I got the first round between Kambosos and Lopez as a much, much more dramatic and entertaining round. But give me your thoughts. I'm not real sure. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I just viewed that round as much, much more entertaining, much more drama. But I could be wrong. But I'm awarding round of the year, Kambosos versus Teofimo Lopez, round 1. So now, robbery of the year. Look, without a doubt, robbery of the year was the Michael Fox fight. He arguably won every round. But that fight was not a world-class fight. So I will leave it out of robbery of the year. Robbery of the year, in my opinion, is between 2 fights. The draw between Brian Castellano and Jermell Charlo, and the first Joseph Parker versus Chisora fight. Now, the Charlo fight versus Castellano. Charlo picked up a couple rounds early, but then Castellano took all of the middle rounds. Charlo clipped Castellano around 10, almost got him out of there, but Castellano rebounded in rounds 11 and 12, and I thought he won the fight 8 rounds to 4 and 9 rounds to 3. They both hurt each other in that fight badly, and I thought that Brian Castellano did more than enough to deserve the victory. But then, crazy enough, one judge gave it to Charlo 9 rounds to 3, one judge had it a draw, and one judge gave it to Brian Castellano by a point, 114-113, which was bizarre to me watching it live. And then the Joseph Parker versus Derek Chisora first fight. Chisora runs out like a bull the first 5 seconds, drops Parker badly, goes on to beat the living you-know-what out of Parker through round 6. Parker then starts outboxing a very tired Chisora from round 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And then Chisora closes out round 12 very well, winning the fight 7 rounds to 5 with a knockdown, giving him a 115-112 edge. One judge had a 115-113 Parker, so it was 7 rounds to 5 Parker, no knockdown, not even counting a knockdown. One judge had a 115-113 Chisora, giving Chisora 7 rounds to 5, but no knockdowns. And one judge bizarrely had a 116-11 Parker, giving Parker 9 out of the 12 rounds. I'm not really sure how. Which of those rounds were you giving him? But okay, and so that's my 2 main problems with the scorecards this year. Overall, we didn't get that much bad scorecards. Like, even when Obviously, A-side, Julian Williams, when he lost to Vladimir Hernandez. Hernandez still got the decision. I was shocked. I had Hernandez winning 7-3, but I knew in my heart of hearts, Hernandez was not going to win the decision. And bizarrely, he got it. I thought Usyk was not going to get the decision when he beat Joshua. Like, I was prepared to go mental in the video, in my post-fight reaction. Go absolutely mental. Biggest robbery I've ever seen, blah, 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 blah. But no, they gave it to him. It was very fair scoring. They gave him the fight. I had a bit more wider to Usyk, but I can't complain. The right guy won. Cannot complain. The right guy won. I don't like to sit and moan about boxing. When the right guy wins, I'm going to say the right guy wins. But in those two fights, the right guy did not win. Without a doubt in my mind. The right guy did not win. I thought it was both fights were clear victories for, respectively, Brian Castellano and Derek Chisora. And I could just show my bias and pick the Derek Chisora versus Joseph Parker fight to be Robbery of the Year. But I'm not going to do that. And my Robbery of the Year is Brian Castellano versus Morell Charlo. They robbed Brian Castellano from an undisputed championship. And if Brian Castellano would have gotten that championship, would have gotten that decision, he would be in the same class with Josh Taylor, Terrence Crawford, and Canelo Alvarez. Instead, he has to try again. And let's say Morell Charlo won the rematch. They robbed him of a chance at greatness. Out of a chance he remembered in the history books. Which is really sad in my opinion. That no other sport or is it like random people choosing who wins. It's a scoreboard. You do this, you win that. Well, it's crazy in boxing. Robbery of the Year goes to Brian Castellano versus Morell Charlo. Runner-up, Parker versus Chisora won. And I was very frustrated after both fights. But what are you going to do? It's boxing. It's the sport we love. But it always messes up. Now in a very new category. I don't think anyone else has done this category, but I'm going to do it since we have lots of celebrity boxers. The Paul brothers, KSI, Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley. Who else? Darren Williams, Frank Gore, Frank Mir. Lots of Vitor Belfort. I think the guy who beat Holyfield. So we have lots of guys who've never boxed before. Headlining events now. Guys who are from other sports. Guys who are actors. Guys who are politicians. Mitt Romney fought Evander Holyfield not too long ago. I made a new category. It's called Celebrity Fighter of the Year. Now, I think this one goes down to two guys. Anderson Silva, former all-time great UFC fighter, and YouTube sensation, obviously, Jake Paul. Jake Paul, this year, he beat Ben Askren by first-round knockout. Beat Tyron Woodley via split decision. I still didn't think how that could have been split decision. And knocked out Tyron Woodley in the rematch. So he had two knockout performances and got a split decision victory over Tyron Woodley. Where Anderson Silva had Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He beat him by split decision. And I thought that fight was a clear victory for Silva. But nevertheless, he beat Chavez Jr. who had a 10-pound weight advantage on him. And obviously had, how many fights going to that fight, Chavez? 58 professional boxing matches. Silva had only had 2. Had a record of 1-1, been stopped once, and had 1 knockout victory. So, obviously, Chavez was a huge favorite. But he easily, and when I mean easily, he easily outboxed Chavez. I think he doubled Chavez in punches landed by the time the fight ended. And which is really sad for boxing, a black eye for boxing. And Chavez Jr., for years, he's been a black eye in boxing. Winning randomly in fights. Just always doing horrible shit just to ruin the sport of boxing. And then he beat, I believe he's also UFC fighter, Tito Ortiz, within a minute. Brutally knocked him out. So I know Jake Paul was the more successful guy, was the more known guy, but I'm going to give Celebrity Fighter of the Year to Anderson Silva. At first, when I made this category, I thought for sure this was going to go to Jake Paul. But beating Chavez Jr. and Tito Ortiz is more impressive than Askren and Tyron Woodley twice, in my opinion. Obviously, it could go either way, Jake Paul or Anderson Silva, but I think Anderson Silva deserves it for this year. Maybe they fight next year and the winner will get it next year. Maybe Francis Ngannou, the UFC heavyweight champion of the world, as rumors suggest, could come to boxing. Maybe he knocks out a contender in heavyweight boxing. Who knows? Now, look, this is the final category. Like and subscribe if you made it this far. I actually greatly appreciate it if you guys did make it this far. Let me know your thoughts. Give me your awards in the comment section below. Sadiq Boxing out.